Hello, everybody. Welcome to Monday Night Therapy. It's like the Big Ten with 18 teams. We can do this whenever. I was considering changing this to night therapy, but that's a discussion for another time. We're
Hmm.
joined tonight by James Williams, who is the UCLA reporter for the Orange County Register, Orange County being the county where LA is, and that's where UCLA is,
Hmm.
because Deshaun Foster told us that.
That's right.
And uh,
Good old Deshaun.
James also has the Bleav
Hmm.
UCLA podcast. You can see the Bleav, how it's spelled and everything. All right,
Hmm.
welcome, James. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I can't complain. First of all, I'm very impressed with the intro there, and just all everything that went into that. At the Bleav in UCLA podcast, we just kind of show up and hit the button and just hope for the best sometimes. So
I
so
I have
I can appreciate the effort that was put in here.
I have to have something that takes me from the world and moves me into this space,
Right.
and
I
and that
understand.
that and dispel the notion that Nebraska just grows corn, because we also grow wheat. Uh,
Yeah,
uh,
that stadium shot. That first of all, that was great, and it gave me a little bit more perspective. So first of all, I have a soft spot over the last couple months. I've grown a soft spot for Nebraska football, because I've used them for my dynasty team on the college football 25 video game. I started at Northern Illinois, and then Nebraska came calling for an offensive coordinator job. So I took the job, and I had 3 years with Dylan Raiola, and we made it to the championship game 3 times, but only won it once. We didn't want to cheat and turn it off when we were losing, but we're doing some things at Nebraska. So I have a soft spot for Nebraska, and was happy to be on here with you today.
You know what? I do. I rage quit. In fact, I've been doing Road to Glory more than anything. And right
Okay.
now I am the head quarterback at TCU, and I am playing in the Big 12 championship against West Virginia. All
Okay.
of this is bizarre, but I am down by 3 with 12 seconds left. I have no
Uh-oh.
timeouts. I'm at the 12-yard line. And my coach, because you don't call the plays, right? You get
Right,
some
right,
options. The
right.
coach wants to run inside zone.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, I want more play options. No, it's inside zone.
Right,
And
right.
I wanted to smash the thing. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay. UCLA.
Hmm.
I was going to start with the whole UCLA things, but where I want to start is something I saw on Twitter about you.
Sure.
And you said you didn't
What did
know
I say?
Nebraska. You did not know
Okay.
Nebraska
Yeah.
and Oklahoma were rivals.
Okay, so first of all, that was it was something I learned from the video game, because
Okay.
and I don't remember them being on the schedule the first 2 years I was playing as Nebraska, and all of a sudden they're on the schedule, and I see it's a rivalry game, and I'm like, who knew? Apparently I'm the only one who didn't. So my apologies to Oklahoma and to Nebraska. But no, that's why I was trying to get my PS5 and my video game expense, because I'm learning things, and and this is what I'm trying to tell my boss, like, I'm learning stuff. No, I wasn't aware. I really wasn't. I had to do a little research, and I think they played like in 2021 and 2022, but prior to that, tell me if I'm wrong, they didn't play since like 2010. Do
Yes.
I have that right? And
Yeah.
so
How old are you?
see, this is, yeah, I'm only 32. I graduated
Okay.
high school in 09. So I'm just like, I wasn't really paying attention to Nebraska and Oklahoma then. So I deserve a
I
pass.
you do, but I tell you, are you planning? Are you Nebraska plays
Yeah.
UCLA this season
Hmm.
in November in Lincoln,
Hmm.
Nebraska? Are you planning to go to that game?
I would like to go to that game, but now you're starting to scare me, because
No.
everyone I've talked to from the Big Ten is telling me I need a winter coat. Do I need a winter coat for
Yes, you will
Nebraska?
need it. It's November, for God's sake.
Well, I
Yeah.
don't know. It's
No.
still it's still
No.
80 degrees and sunny out here in November.
Okay. Welcome to your new reality.
Yeah.
Someday you're going to have to go to Iowa, and it doesn't matter if it's August there. It's still cold as hell, just because the
Okay.
icy coldness, evil of Iowa will strike your heart.
I need a
Anyway,
coat. I got to get a coat.
yes, you do. But here, if you do go to Nebraska, what I want you to
Hmm.
do is write an article.
Okay.
Because what you do when you go to Nebraska is you look for guys like me, maybe not long hair, but gray haired guys, and you walk up to them and you say, "Excuse me, could you tell me about the Nebraska-Oklahoma rivalry? I'm a young guy. I'm with
Hmm.
UCLA," and then you have to give them time
Okay.
to stop weeping, and ask them, what do you miss about this? What do tell me about your biggest story from that. That's a
Okay.
story that you can do, and you will
Gotcha.
be beloved by Nebraska fans forever. I mean, unless you attack us, then we will
Hey,
write your
like
name down,
John, like I
passed
told you,
down in generations.
John, I told you I have a soft spot for Nebraska. So if
Okay.
there's anything, especially after that tweeted, that I can do to get back in the good graces of the people there at Nebraska, I'm willing to do so. I'm writing it down to with your story idea, because I need
Yeah.
to come to you for more story ideas like that. This is great.
Well, yeah, I'm always open,
Do you
man.
want to be my editor?
I'll look at it
Okay.
for historical accuracy.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so UCLA, you're joining the Big
Hmm.
Ten. I mean, it's real now. There's no backing out.
Yeah.
Uh, this is weird. I mean, you're only 32. I'm 62, so I got 30
Hmm.
years on you. I
Hmm.
mean, this is kind of weird for me, but it was weird years ago, a decade ago or so when we joined, and it
Yeah.
ripped apart all of our old rivalries and things like that.
Hmm.
So I guess the first question is what do you think about joining the Big Ten now that you're going to have to buy a winter coat?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, what exactly is a winter coat? That's another topic, but I'm still on the winter coat thing. I don't know what's going to qualify and be good enough for that. But um, it's a little different. I started covering the team in 2019, which was Chip Kelly's second year. Um, I mean, everything, I was familiar with it. Most of my family are USC fans. I don't claim any teams, John. I don't claim any teams
Okay.
here. We're not biased in any regards here. So but I had been to a few USC games growing up and whatnot, so was familiar with with the Pac-10 and the Pac-12 and some of those teams. And then they just changed it up on me. I remember someone sent me a message saying, "Hey, UCLA is going to the Big Ten," and I almost blocked the person because I'm like, "What are you talking about? Stop that right now." And then literally a couple months later, it happened. And I was like, "Oh, he was right." And I'm just like, I first of all, if I would have taken the man seriously, I could have probably broke the story or something. But yeah, but yeah, I'm just like, there's just no chance. I mean, are things not the great? It's not the greatest. The Pac-12 wasn't the greatest product, at least as of late, but it
Right.
was fun. We had the Pac-12 After Dark thing, which I liked. A lot of
Yeah.
people didn't seem to care for it, but I liked it. But no, I mean, it's going to be different, right? I mean, the biggest fun fact that I've been kind of throwing around, and it's been out there. You've probably seen it by now, but UCLA is going to travel as much, this nearly the same amount of miles as it will take for a trip around Earth, and that just
Yeah.
I don't know how many away games I'm going to, but I mean, I've only been on a plane a couple of times, so I'm it's gonna be hard work.
What's that Disney song? It's a whole new
Yeah,
world.
uh,
That's there you
that
go. That's
that
you.
hey that might be the theme song of the year, to be honest, for UCLA. So no, I mean, it's different. I mean, they're not doing anything differently so far, or making it out like they're doing anything differently. It's still kind of just business as usual, at least for the football program. Obviously, you see the branding, you see the patch, the patch on the jerseys. When we're doing interviews, that the screen in the back for the head coach that says Big Ten on it now. So there's some things that are different. I mean, I think it's gonna hit them like a ton of bricks once they're kind of on some of these road trips. I mean, they have LSU as a non-conference game, and that's not
Yeah.
even a Big Ten game, and then they still got to travel beyond that. So, I don't think it's fully settled in yet. Some UCLA fans, and most notably Bill Walton, who obviously has since passed away, was unhappy
Right.
with
Yeah.
the idea of them even leaving the Pac-12. So there's still some mixed reaction. Obviously, some people are kind of coming more around to it, but at the end of the day, especially when you have a new coach coming in, it's all going to matter about if you're winning games.
Right.
And they're saying this is one of the hardest schedules but I mean, I think there's a chance where it can only be harder down the road when you have Michigan and Ohio State on the schedule in the future. You don't even have them this year, and it's already kind of being deemed as one of the harder schedules in the country. So,
Well, let's get into football. I mean,
mhm.
Chip Kelly leaves. He's now
Mhm.
the offensive coordinator at Ohio State,
Yep.
which I honestly think is going to make them a juggernaut. I
Yep.
don't really.
Mhm.
I mean, I think Chip Kelly probably was like, I don't want to be a head coach anymore, but I can still kick ass on an offense, and you give him 5 stars coming out as
Yes. Left and right like he did
yeah,
when he was kind of there at Oregon. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, and
I
then
mean,
you
you could mess around and have an offense if you really wanted to.
so Deshaun Foster, you talk
Mhm.
about him. I mean, he obviously got up at Big Ten media days, and
Yeah.
he was memorable, but not for good reasons.
Right. Yeah, wasn't the strongest first impression. Like I've kind of said before, I don't think I would have done any better in that setting either. When you're in a half empty NFL stadium, just because it's a media day and who's all really there for a media day. But then you have these rows of media. He didn't really have any prior experience. Again, I don't know what kind of press conferences he was doing as an NFL player, but when Chip Kelly was there, we didn't really talk to assistants. He didn't really have any, we talk about players and how
Okay,
they need to practice and have reps. Deshaun Foster was not getting any practice or reps when it came to doing media interviews, talking to media, knowing the ins and outs of how to dance around a question, which has been great actually, because he's just very straightforward with stuff. And we love that because Chip would just dance around like he was doing the Macarena or something, and we couldn't get an answer out of him. But with Deshaun, yeah, I mean, it's he's just him, and part of him is actually just he's not a very big talker. I mean, maybe there should have been a little bit more prep, or I mean, I don't know how you really can get any reps of of, of playing through that setting he was in, but he's been great, and I think for a lot of people who made it a point to see what else he had to say throughout the rest of media day when he was in more of these on the desk settings or more intimate settings, he was fine. But when he has to kind of do a monologue or something along those lines, it didn't come off very well.
right,
There wasn't there, obviously it gave reason for rivals like Cal and USC to, just kind of jump on it. But he's kind of embraced it and took it in stride. He had the shirt, "We're in LA."
right.
Yeah, and so and he kind of played into it a little bit, which I think is kind of the way to do it. If you're not willing to, kind of be a part of the joke and rather just if you're going to be stubborn about it, the way Chip Kelly probably would have. I mean, people are just going to continue to run with it and give it a much larger shelf life than it needs to be. So I think he's on the other side of that. The players obviously continue to support him, and he would hard to say, but he probably would not be in the position he's in if it wasn't for the players who more or less demanded that he be the head coach. As soon as Chip Kelly walked out the door, Deshaun Foster was ready to go ahead and be the running backs coach for the Las Vegas Raiders, and join Antonio Pierce, but had maybe been there a week. I don't even know if the ink was dry on the contract there yet. But as soon as Chip Kelly's out, the players were saying, "We want Deshaun Foster. Please bring him in." And I think they kind of did this, give us 48 hours. We'll see what happens. And they danced around. Supposedly Minnesota's PJ Fleck was supposed to be a candidate.
Right.
But they got their guy. Again, they got an alum. I think that's the biggest thing is you're not going to have to worry about Deshaun Foster leaving, right? For him,
Okay.
this is it. But now it's a matter of how long will he be there, and that's going to come down to winning games and whatnot. But I mean, he's checking all the right boxes. There's been this uptick in NIL. There's been this uptick in
Oh,
just excitement and possible and optimism, right? So things are going well, but obviously they got to suit up. They got to get on the field, and things can be totally different in a year from now.
all right. We're going to take some comments. Paul Dalen says changing conferences, especially when you have to travel 6 hours, is going to suck.
Yeah. Tell me
Like,
about it.
yeah, I think that's the thing that nobody prepares
Hmm.
themselves for. They just think that, we did this in our old conference, like Oregon. If you look at Oregon, I
Hmm.
mean, they're way up here, but they're
Yeah.
still going to have to deal with the first year of being in a new conference and all that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. And it's going to have all these, I don't know, unintended consequences and things that,
Right.
things that
Yeah.
you weren't prepared to deal with.
And you know what? I think on top of that, like, and this was some of the stuff like I didn't even think about initially. But it's like, what is the mental health of the players going to look like after some of these road trips? They still have to do their, their schoolwork and everything else. And it's not like you've played these guys for the past 3 or 4 years already, right? It's a whole new crop of teams, so you're really gonna have to watch film and have an understanding of who's who and what's what. But it's just like, is there gonna be sleep schedules? How serious are they gonna take the sleep schedule? Are they gonna leave an extra day early than they normally would? Are they gonna leave on Friday instead of practicing on Friday so they can get there early, get acclimated to what the new time zones are gonna be? How are they gonna feel coming back? I think is the biggest thing. And
Right.
obviously, as I mentioned, I'm gonna miss some of these Pac-12 after dark games. Some of these
Right.
games we're be playing are gonna be at like 10 a.m. or something. So so that's gonna be a bit of a change for them. There's just gonna be a lot of change. And obviously there had always been talk about UCLA's athletic department kind of being in the red financially. So obviously the money will be helpful. But again, it's a matter of what you do with that money in terms of providing the resources you need. I mean, there's kind of been some talk, not from UCLA specifically, but I think just the thought of, hey, maybe they set up a satellite camp in the Midwest or something. That way they're not having to fully fly back.
Really?
I mean, people are throwing stuff out there. So, I mean, it's possible, but hopefully not, because then,
That I don't know. That'd be that's an interesting idea.
I mean, heck, how much money it'll cost, I don't know. But I mean, you're going to have to do something, because these coast to coast trip, I mean, are you, I think that I forgot who the two teams are, but I think Rutgers might be part of the back-to-back, where they do have a bye week there, but it's just like it's 2 road games. If you have the schedule there,
Well,
you
you go. Well, it's October 19th, and then a week off, and then at Nebraska. So at
and
Rutgers, at
yeah, okay, then
Nebraska, but
Nebraska.
there's
So
a week off. But
wouldn't you just want to hang out there? Just hang out there. Don't come
well,
back. Like,
it's all this winter coat stuff. You're gonna have to buy a shitload of them.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, heck, I mean, hey, they got the Jordan deal this past year. They're well off when it comes to the attire and all that. I'm sure Jordan has a winter coat, and if they don't, they'll make one. Now,
All right.
will they give me one? Probably not. But
Fred Sacco says John has the voice of a songbird drowning in hot tar. Hey, I wasn't prepared. This is off the cuff. Yeah, okay, wait. Tiger Shark Diver says Chip Kelly is the definition of I'm done with this shit. And then here's Fred Sacco again with a serious question. Do UCLA fans even care that Chip left?
So here's a serious answer for you, Fred. No, I mean, they really didn't care. They were glad. They were excited. They were dancing in the streets. I think some of the fans have even kind of told me, yeah, it was great at the time. They won the press conference, right? And it was all great. I mean, when they hired Chip, he had just gotten fired, and he had been fired the year before that in the NFL. He got fired as 2 NFL stops, and then just kind of stumbled on into UCLA. So he just wasn't really knocking it out of the park with recruiting. Obviously, he landed 5-star quarterback Dante Moore, who I believe was up there as those highly touted quarterbacks. I think along with Dylan Raiola, or was Dylan this year? So Dante was the Dylan Raiola of last year. Let's put it that way. And it was in that class, right? And things happened at Oregon. Kenny Dillingham goes to Arizona State. So they just kind of stumble into Dante Moore too. They did get Liatu Latu, who was the first defensive player drafted in the NFL draft. That was more so the connections with some of the guys that he hired onto his staff. So it's not like they were really going out and getting people. They were just kind of hanging around and getting 3 stars and maybe a 4-star every once in a while, just to make it look like something. But it wasn't really moving the needle. And then they would just mess around and lose games that you're not supposed to lose. You just beat LSU at home the first season, one of the first games back from COVID. And then, you're on a roll. You're on ESPN. They're talking about you. Hey, are they a sleeper for the national title? Yada, yada, yada. And then they fumbled it away, losing to Fresno State when Kalen DeBoer was actually the head coach there, and lost all momentum. So it's just like anytime things go good, they don't last very long. The quarterback gets hurt. Something kind of happens. So I think they were just really kind of ready to move on. And again, when you get a guy like Deshaun Foster, who is an alum there and is going to care and have that same Bruin pride, the way fans hoped Chip Kelly would, and it's going to be different when you have an alum in there. I think fans are happy with the situation for what it is. And a lot of people, I think, when you first kind of hear that, you're like, well, Chip Kelly, I mean, that's as good as it gets. But I think he's in the right role there at Ohio State, because he doesn't have to worry about recruiting. He doesn't have to worry about NIL. He doesn't have to worry about all the things that came with being a head coach. He can just get up on the board and just draw plays and be as creative as he was when he was at Oregon and have a good time. And I don't know if he'll really light a fire in him to get back into head coaching, but I think he'll be more than happy with where he's at. The biggest thing is I don't know how long he'll even stay there. One, just because they're, what Ryan Day's status is if he loses to Michigan another 2 times or so. But I think Chip may still be flirting with the NFL, because that was the biggest thing. It wasn't there. It didn't come off as surprising because he's talked about his relationship with Ryan Day, but I think it was just that UCLA fans were set on, if you're going to go to the NFL, just go. UCLA fans wanted UCLA to buy out Chip Kelly, but they weren't going to drop the money on it. So there was just this hatred and this tension for the last 2 or 3 years, where even when they had winning records, fans were just kind of over the whole thing. So they're happy to move on from him. So yeah, they didn't care that he was gone.
So what is the expectation for UCLA football?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, okay, let's see. James Boardman says, I was at that early 80s game when UCLA had Rick Neuheisel as quarterback. It was a butt kicking by the scoring explosion. That was early 80s. I want to say 89. Troy Aikman, right? Troy Aikman, UCLA.
May have been. I wasn't even born then.
You need to start. I will tell you this about Nebraska fans. They know their history, football. Apparently. We know our football. Yeah. You're going to deal with, if you get to go to LSU, okay, at Tiger Stadium, I would take that trip in a heartbeat, because that would, for me, would be a bucket list. But when you go there, they'll be more concerned about trying to stay upright than they will football. Nebraska fans, they can drink a fair amount, but I'd like to say that they're really love football more than
I'm here
almost
for it.
Any other. But you need to learn this shit. Okay, UCLA in the late 80s.
Am I leaving this show with homework? Is that what's happening?
Yes,
here?
You are. My God. UCLA in the late 80s, I remember this. James, correct me if I'm wrong. James Boardman, correct me if I'm wrong. It was Troy Aikman. They scored 21 points in the first quarter. I was at a friend of mine's house. He'd never been around anybody that was a college football fan like that. I was living in Minnesota, where I live now. I went completely apeshit insane. I was never invited back there, by the way. But there's been some great games with Nebraska and UCLA. I think 1984, the game finished. Terry Donahue, the coach. No, wait, that had to be 1994. See, when you're old, everything gets jumbled together.
Yeah, it all runs together.
We won 14-13, I think the game was, and it was a really, really great game, because Tommy Frazier was a quarterback. Okay, anyway, so what are the expectations for UCLA?
Deshaun Foster very early on said, we're trying to win games. We're trying to have a winning record. One of his players, and I'm not trying to throw him under the bus for saying that. I mean, if I'm a football player, this should be the belief I have too. Now, don't laugh now. Just, football players they got to say what they have to say, right?
Right.
He said the goal is to win a Big Ten championship. So,
that's,
I mean, if you're not,
that should be a goal.
If you don't have that as a goal, what are you playing for? So I respect that, so obviously they're in it to win it. For me personally, I kind of see this as the year zero, just because going back to the Chip Kelly thing, when he leaves, that's way after the coaching cycle was over.
Right.
I mean, they're playing catch up. They're still playing catch up, just in general. So just from that standpoint, it's a year zero. They've been able to recruit better. But I think the best recruiting class could be this upcoming one that he's going to have in, I'm losing track of my year, I guess 2025. or is it 2026? I'm blanking out on the years, but I think that's when it really is going to start mattering. So right now they're saying all the right things about we're in it to win it. We're going to be competitive. But to me, this is the year zero. I mean, if you make it to a bowl game, that's great. I mean, they weren't really making it to bowl games with Chip Kelly either. But just looking at the schedule and considering how tough it is, 6-6, maybe. I think the ceiling is 7-5. I'd still have to kind of map out who those wins are against. USC, UCLA have gone back and forth the last couple years.
What do you want to go through the schedule right now?
Sure, let's do it.
First game's at Hawaii and Honolulu.
If you don't win that game, then that's supposed to be a winnable game for them, I would imagine.
Okay, Indiana at the Rose Bowl.
I mean, if it's season opener or home opener, I mean, if you should be able to win that. If I'm not mistaken, again, I'm not caught up on my Indiana history, but I would imagine they're probably around the same equivalent as UCLA in the Big Ten. I would think maybe not. No,
Indiana has
they've fallen off quite a bit.
Okay, you're young. I'll forgive you this.
Are you going to ask me to name an Indiana
anybody
player?
In the comments section, name an Indiana football star. Here's the thing. Indiana is kind of interesting because they have that coach Signetti who swears to God, he's like I don't know. He's
James
like
Madison,
Tony Soprano,
Mm-hmm,
if he's not going to beat you, he's going to whack you or something. I don't know what the hell it is.
With the last name like that, you don't know what to expect. Yeah.
So
you never know. But they're rebuilding too. So again, I think that's why it kind of comes off as a winnable game, right?
Yep.
I don't want to say it's a guaranteed win like I probably would with Hawaii, but I mean, maybe you're starting off 2-0. I think you're looking good there.
And
then it gets ugly. It gets ugly after that.
Yes, it does.
It gets ugly real quick.
At LSU.
I mean, you're playing at LSU, that's going to be a different monster. You're traveling out there. I mean, I didn't have them winning when they were coming to the Rose Bowl to play them, but I just don't see it. I don't know. No. I mean, who's LSU's quarterback? Are they returning? Yeah, they just lost Jaden Daniels, who I covered in high school. So I think Nussmeier is their guy. That name's kind of been familiar. So, I mean, I'd probably give LSU the edge. In a game like that, you're just hoping to be a little competitive, right? But yeah, I have them at 2-1 at that point.
Okay, after we get through the schedule, we're going to have to go through a bunch of comments.
Sure.
Because it is an audience participation.
Awesome. I'm all for it.
That's why Minnie helps out in the background, is because I can't keep up with everything because I'm old and slow. There you go. And I sing like a bird in tar.
Hot tar.
Then you get Oregon at the Rose Bowl.
You get Oregon at the Rose Bowl. Maybe.
Yep.
I mean, if you're if you got to win one of these 3 games, I mean, your best shot might be Oregon. You catch them slipping, depending on what Dylan Gabriel looks like,
True. And then here's another game you need to go to. Mm-hmm. Then that game I want to go to Penn State and just see Beaver Stadium before I'm done here in this mortal coil. So you're at Penn State, Beaver Stadium.
No
what do you
shot.
think of that? Yeah.
No shot.
Minnesota at the Rose Bowl.
I would say that one would probably be a little bit more. I mean, heck, you got to bounce back from that 3-game losing streak at some point. So, I mean, ideally, you would want it to start immediately. I think Minnesota is probably a more winnable game if PJ Fleck is trying to get out, or I mean, some are saying he was using UCLA as leverage, but if he wants to be on the outs, I mean, maybe they're not on. Maybe it could be a game UCLA can come out on top in.
At Rutgers in Piscataway, New Jersey.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a trip. Who was that? Greg Schiano, right?
Yes.
You never know. I mean, if they're playing at home, I'd say it could be a winnable game just because of the travel. I don't know. Because Rutgers is obviously, they're kind of on the up. I think some people kind of have them as a little bit of a sleeper team. Not that they're going to win the Big Ten, right? But as a team that can be, in the higher end of that middle tier there, maybe. I'd probably have Rutgers.
Okay. At Nebraska, November 2nd.
That's at Nebraska, right?
At Nebraska.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm curious to see how Dylan performs at quarterback there. And the main reason why is just because we're coming off of Dante Moore out here at UCLA, and it was kind of just messy at quarterback. They were rotating three different guys, but if there was like 3 games in a row where Dante Moore threw a pick six, it was kind of bad. I mean, and that's just coming with a true freshman, and you just have to accept that. So if they catch Dylan on a bad day, maybe UCLA wins, but I'd probably give Nebraska the edge there.
You get Iowa at the Rose Bowl.
I was actually kind of not complaining about this game, but I don't know how I feel about it being on a Friday. It's supposed to be homecoming for UCLA, so you would think maybe there's a chance you win it. I mean, the game's probably only going to be 13-10.
Right.
If that.
That's how it works.
It's a Friday game. It's in the evening. There's traffic. I don't know who all is going to show up to it. I would imagine people will because it's going to be a homecoming. But also, you have a team like Iowa, who I think has a pretty good fan base. I think they're going to show up at the Rose Bowl for their team, and maybe that kind of gives them the edge. I would probably lean towards Iowa. I just don't think it was a smart move to have Iowa as your homecoming game because, I mean, you always have a chance against Iowa, maybe, if something goes your way. But, I mean, there's not a whole lot.
They will drag you into the mud. And
they will. They
will literally bring Iowa mud with them. It'll smell like hog shit, and they'll spread it all over your town. And then you'll be going, "What is going on? God, it's Iowa! Iowa's everywhere." Here's what I want you to do. Here's what I want you to do for the Iowa game. I want you to tell whoever your band director is that they need to do a halftime show insulting Iowa.
Okay,
like get out there. Do some cow formations or something.
Do something, right? I mean, it's homecoming, so I don't know if they're going to be looking to slander Iowa, but
yes,
you never know.
You're going to learn this. I'll tell you this right now.
If you're going to be a Big Ten team, you got to get in there and you got to get your hands dirty, right?
Yes. Here's the thing: you need to realize this right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you this. You're going to it won't take you that long. Probably take you one game against them. Everybody hates Iowa. This isn't just me.
Okay.
literally last year when Minnesota beat Nebraska, the first game of the season, we all walked out of the stadium and somebody started the chant, "Who hates Iowa? We hate Iowa." And both Nebraska and Minnesota fans did that chant together. This is something that's common,
I mean, hey, anyone with any offensive ability apparently hates Iowa as well. They can't throw the ball for worth a lick.
Okay, November 15th at Washington. Washington's lost just about everybody left. Their coach left. Their athletic director went to Nebraska for crying out loud.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because they're kind of in a rebuild stage, more or less. I mean, how could they not be, as you mentioned? And they didn't get the guys that they thought maybe they would get when Jedd Fisch decided to leave for Arizona. The funny thing is it depends how inspired or how true it is with Jedd Fisch, because once upon a time, Jedd Fisch worked at UCLA and was supposedly interested in the UCLA job. And I think if they had moved on from Chip Kelly any sooner, they may have landed a guy like Jedd Fisch. So I think maybe Jedd Fisch is coming out and he's going to have the guys inspired. I think that's a toss-up game. I would probably go in the favor of UCLA just because you kind of know what you have there, because with Deshaun Foster being hired, no one really left nobody left for the transfer portal. So there's at least some level of consistency there, right? Okay. So I would give them that edge over just kind of what Washington is with the guys that they left and the caliber of guys that they left. I'd probably just give the edge to UCLA at this point in the season. I mean, it could be very different with where things fall at that point in the season. But yeah, I'd probably give UCLA the edge there.
And then you have USC. You can't spell suck without USC.
Yes.
At the Rose Bowl,
at the Rose Bowl, it can go back and forth. I think the trend I've noticed since covering the team is whoever the home team is loses. So probably a loss for UCLA.
And then why do you have Fresno State November 30th, the last game of the year?
You know what? That's what I want to know. No, actually, it kind of makes sense in a way. So what they have done in the past is with Chip Kelly, they were just playing some of these cupcake games, and heck, a Mountain West team such as the Fresno State was kind of the highlight of the non-conference schedule, right? Obviously, they're playing those 3 games in a row. I think the last 2 years, all the non-conference games have been at home. And even then, I think Fresno State has gotten the best of UCLA in their series over the last couple of years. But I think the thing that is significant, and maybe the reason why you have that game at that point in the season, is because you stay on the West Coast. If you look at that bottom half of that schedule there,
Right.
I think it's at least that month or most of that last month there, with the farthest trip you might be taking. I think is that Washington, right?
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken. So it keeps you on the West Coast. You're not having to take a late game somewhere, and imagine having the Rutgers game as your last game of the season, right? When you're already battered and bruised and everything else. So you get a Fresno game. I mean, hopefully you don't look silly. I mean, imagine you beat USC, you have some momentum. You think you're finishing the season here strong, and you fumble at the end against Fresno State.
All right, we're going to go through a bunch of comments. You don't have to respond to all of them.
Awesome.
I will say this. Remind me of this. But maybe write this down. November 2nd at Nebraska. Maybe Nebraskans should start like a coat drive for UCLA fans.
We need some help out there, because I can imagine, if
you guys are going to show up in these crappy coats and die.
Listen, I probably don't know if I would have shown up with a coat, just because I've never been there. But enough people have told me at this point I need a winter coat that I would show up with one. And again, I would be afraid that it probably still wouldn't be the correct one. So I may be back here on the show with a winter coat asking if this is good enough.
All right. We're going to go. Where are we going? All right. Linda Wilkins says, all you need is a big red end painted on your bare chest to enjoy the Nebraska weather.
Okay.
No, you'll probably be in the press box. So that's not really, probably not acceptable up there.
That's one of the better things. We don't have to deal with the weather for most of the game, thankfully.
Yeah. They are very serious. It's a working press box at Nebraska.
Yes. No cheering in the press box now.
Yes.
Even though some still do it. But.
Okay. Jason Reeves, UCLA is a classic pre-conference opponent that I'm pretty tickled about having, more so than the others. I'm glad we're playing UCLA too. Because, some of those games years ago that nothing about, really, really damn good games. Brandon Silver with a new quarterback and a new offensive coordinator, but a talented wide receiver like Sturdivant. How do you think UCLA will move the ball in the physical Big Ten? Go ahead and take that.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for the question, Brandon. I think that's one of the deepest positions that they have is the receiver room. But they've kind of been known, especially with Chip Kelly, they were more so known as a running team. How they will fare kind of remains to be seen. They've actually made it a point during the offseason to kind of, maybe encourage some guys on the offensive line who were starters who maybe weren't, doing their part the way that they should have been. They kind of maybe encourage them to move on a little bit. I don't know that for sure, but that's kind of what it looked like. But no, they really kind of recruited in some offensive linemen. I haven't done the tail of the tape to necessarily see if the guys that they're bringing in, how they kind of size up average wise against, some of the guys they'll be going up against, but they've made it an effort to do that. Obviously, when your offensive coordinator is Eric Bieniemy and he was a running back himself back at Colorado. And then Deshaun Foster was the running backs coach at UCLA for the past 5-6 years or so. I would imagine they're going to lean on running the ball. TJ Harden comes back as one of their key guys. He should be the starter this year. Shared some time with Carson Steele, who's making some noise with the Kansas City Chiefs at the moment. And then they brought in Jalen Berger, who was transferred from Michigan State. Haven't seen a whole lot of him, but I mean, maybe they do some different things there. They might get a little cute and run the option. I think it kind of just remains to be seen with what to expect from Eric Bieniemy. We did see him during the open practice, and he had one of his receivers in motion and kind of do this loop around the quarterback. And I call it the Mickey Mouse because it looked like a Mickey Mouse ear. So I'm not fully in tune with what they have planned, but and maybe they have to get a little creative to get past some of these teams that are a bit more physical than they're going to be. And I think if anything, it's going to be a wake up call for UCLA that they are going to have to get bigger. And if that means you got to go out of state to find some linemen, you're going to have to do so, because California is known for many things, but quality offensive linemen is not necessarily one of them.
Okay. Midnight DIY, do it yourself, says Bruin fan here. We're hoping that we can get 6 wins and get to a bowl game.
That would be ideal. I mean, 7-5 again, as I mentioned, is kind of my ceiling. I mean, 6-6, I mean, would kind of be good.
Fred Sacco says Frank Burns, Indiana football star. Do you know what the reference Frank Burns is? You're probably too young for that.
No, I don't.
Okay,
I was gonna believe it was an
an
actual player, but now I'm starting to believe it's not.
Well, Fred is usually sarcastic, but
Okay.
Frank Burns was one of the stars of a TV show called MASH back in the 80s. I was in college. I was in college at Nebraska in the 80s. When the police would come and break up a party and stuff, they would make you leave and they would make you sign your name as to who you were. I would always sign Frank Burns, and they would never, they go, "You're Frank Burns?" "Yes, sir." And they would always go, "Okay." And just, they didn't bug you. Okay. Brandon Stiver says Michael Penix was a Hoosier before a Husky. He was at Indiana and he got the hell out of there.
And never knew who he was when he was at Indiana until he joined. So
Tony Wassland says, I see 25,000 Gophers fan at the Rose Bowl.
Well,
here's the thing. I live in Minnesota. It's really cold here. My daughter does not live in Minnesota. She lives in San Diego. So there's probably 25,000 Minnesota fans that have moved to.
Well, I was going to say, why aren't you in San Diego too? I'm like, I mean, we're talking about decisions here, John. I think she's on to something.
She is. It's too many people out there. There's just too many people.
You don't have to tell me about it. The traffic is crazy. I think the thing is the attendance has been fairly low. And they've hit some average lows. And I think one of the games over the last couple of years was in attendance, like record low, in recent years. So, I mean, anything would be better at this point, but no, I think one of the better things about the Big Ten, or the move to the Big Ten, is you're going to get some of these more passionate fan bases coming in here and ideally filling up the Rose Bowl a little bit. Will it be 25,000? I don't know, but some of the games that they've had in the past couple of years, they're lucky if they're hitting 30,000 just in general with their own UCLA fans. So I think UCLA fans would be more than happy to have anybody in the Rose Bowl.
Nancy Andrzejak says, I am coming and I am coming and I think we can win. I think that she is a UCLA fan coming to Nebraska and she'll probably need a coat.
If she, I mean, Nancy,
maybe we should start a coat.
If you're
drive,
a UCLA fan, you need a coat. We need a coat drive going. If you guys start one, let me know. I'll promote it. I'll spread the word. We gotta do something. We gotta help the people out, because again, I was uninformed, and I would imagine there's other people who haven't looked that far ahead in the schedule, slandering Iowa, just telling the truth about Iowa.
And here's the reason. One of the reasons why. Brandon Stiver says more. Yeah, their corn. They have bad corn. Nebraska has good corn. Have you ever had sweet corn? I mean, like sweet corn on the cob.
Not on the cob. Not that I'm aware.
Okay. Then
is that the sign for Nebraska? Does that mean it's Nebraska corn or?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, Nebraska's sweet corn.
Okay.
Sweet corn on the cob. People cook it different, but butter, a little bit of butter, salt and pepper. It's to die for. It's a very simple food, but on the cob, fresh sweet corn from Nebraska, it's absolutely fabulous. Paul Dallin, many I accidentally clicked off and missed somebody's comment. Says
real quick,
real quick,
going back to slandering Iowa or anything along those lines.
We're for that here.
I got Colorado fans upset because I was talking about the reporter situation with Deion Sanders over there, and they called me every name in the book. Some that I can't say here, some they called me a little boy, and everything else in between. And I'm like, hey, whatever gets you through the day. None of you guys have your picture on Twitter. You guys all have Deion or Shador, so I'm not going to argue with a bunch of people who can't even show their face. So, it is what it is.
If you're slandering Colorado, you're already, people are probably going to send you 20.
I'm already
You're in, man.
See,
okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, Paul Dallin says November 2nd could be anywhere from 80 and 25. This is true. This is the problem with that time of year in Nebraska is it can be, well, put it this way, 1982 Oklahoma-Nebraska game. I was at that game. We tore down the goalpost. I almost died underneath the goalpost, falling down when they were tearing it down. And then guy picked me up, saved my life from being trampled to death. I ran out to the 50-yard line, and there was a kid, my fellow college student, in his underwear, eating a frozen orange because it was 20 degrees that day and the wind was blowing. It was terrible. And but sometimes it's absolutely beautiful, so you never know what you're going to get.
See, okay, so now a part of me would I'm not going to lie, I would be a little upset if I brought a winter coat and then it was 80 degrees, because then I felt like I overpacked, and then and then it's like I'm going to the airport right after the game, so I'm carrying the winter coat and it's 80 degrees, and then I look crazy because I have a winter coat and it's 80 degrees. But I mean, you got to be prepared for anything, right?
Okay, James Boardman says, I will take tornadoes and blizzards over fires and earthquakes.
No. So look, I've had offers for jobs in Mississippi and everywhere else, and I just cannot do it. Just because, the thought of a hurricane or a tornado, I just feel like
tornadoes just show up, they destroy everything in their path, shit flies all over the place, and then they're gone.
That's the problem, though. You're not in control of your situation. Not that you necessarily are with a fire or an earthquake. Look, we've had two earthquakes in the last week, and that's kind of big enough deal. It shakes the windows a little bit, the house kind of rattles a little bit, but you're fine. By the time you even realize it's an earthquake, it's kind of over already. You're like,
but the big one's coming. This California's gonna slide off into the ocean.
I mean, they've been saying, John, I didn't feel an earthquake until I was like 15 or something. So I'm not bothered by it. The fire thing, sure. I mean, that can get a little out of hand. Right. I'm not going to knock the fire thing, but I mean, don't throw your cigarettes out the window when it's 80 degrees and it's dry grass, and we won't have these issues. That's part of the problem.
Okay. Paul Dallin says, what is the UCLA sellout streak?
Sellout in terms of like selling out the Rose Bowl?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Nebraska is going to hit, I think, 400 this year.
See,
back to when I was born, literally the year I was born, we have sold out games. 1962. Wow. Yeah.
What is the attendance there for Nebraska?
I think it's 80,000, 90,000, somewhere in there.
Oh, see, okay. Well, see, UCLA. So the thing with UCLA, again, the only game they've sold out is either the USC games, or I think the LSU game was a sellout. I think the Colorado game, which was a homecoming game this last year, was a sellout. A lot of people look at the Rose Bowl and knock UCLA because they have these tarps up that kind of cover some of the seats.
Right.
I mean, but they're realistic about it. They're only a sellout to them is 80,000. The Rose Bowl can hold 90,000, depending on what the event is. If they have more seats on the field, it can seat 100,000 people, I believe. But I mean, you're not going to get that many sellouts at the Rose Bowl when you have the Lakers, you have USC, you have the Dodgers, you have a bunch of different stuff going on. Yeah. Traffic's bad. There's a lot of excuses that could be made, but and they got to win games. They haven't been winning a lot of games, so there hasn't been a whole lot of reasons for sellouts. But I will make a note, Paul. I will make a note, and we'll look into the sellout streak, and I'll try and report back on that. I do know, in terms of just experience from the Pac-12, Utah had a very impressive sellout streak they had going for a while. But yeah, nothing in LA. LA, you're not getting a whole lot. I mean, you're just trying to get people to show up on time, Paul. You're not, let alone a sellout.
Fred Sacco says we'll have a coat drive and all the coats will be Husker coats. James Borden says, James, you could always buy a coat when you get here if you need one. Husker Authentic has a nice selection. Huh?
Okay.
Huh?
Oh, how much How much is a winter coat? Like a real winter coat? Like I feel like we're gonna end up talking like $100, $150.
I mean, it depends on what you want.
I'm trying to not be cold, John.
Okay,
I
we'll put that in the people can answer in the comment section. I would think it's probably, I don't know. Well, here's the thing. The reason why I live in Minnesota and not San Diego is because
okay.
I like being in
This
the
has to
outdoors.
be. This needs
I
to be
like
good.
being in the outdoors, and I've liked in the
Okay.
past. I'm getting older and I'm kind of screwed up because I've
Mhm.
had heart issues and things like that.
Okay.
But I like going fishing. I used to love going camp. Went camping. I was a Boy Scout leader for 17 years, and that includes being out in winter in 20 below weather. So my winter
Gotcha.
coat is going to be different than what you need. So
Okay.
if
Well,
you're asking,
what is
I'm
your
going to go
winter
out.
coat?
What?
You can't just say that. What is your winter coat?
Oh,
What is it like?
it's a Columbia, but you're gonna listen.
Okay.
It's gonna be layers. If you're
Gotcha.
outside in 10 degrees or below, you're gonna wear layers of clothing.
Okay. I have a question, and the people in the comments can leave their comments regarding this as well. What is the cutoff point for shorts? When is like what is the lowest you guys can get with wearing shorts? Because here, like 65, 60 is kind of getting cold. It's getting a little
I
chilly
think that
outside at
has to do
60.
with your tolerance as a man.
But I mean, if I mean, shouldn't you guys be used to it though? I would think. I mean, like
I
you
I
know,
I would say, well, I'm older and crustier, so 65
let's
is
hear it.
probably it for me. But
Okay.
many will find the comments. Okay, James Boardman is being mean, and he says November 2nd. I hope it's a night game.
You guys aren't sending positive vibes. That's for sure.
Yeah, come on, you guys. Jason Reeves says John's in Minnesota. Don't listen to him. It is tropical in Nebraska. In winter, it honestly, it's quite different.
I'm gonna have to do some research on Nebraska.
Yes, you are. You know what? Years ago, I literally wrote because I taught survival in Boy Scouts, and part
Okay,
of that was winter survival. I will send you an article about how to dress for the cold weather game. All
please.
right. Fred Sago says, I'll wear them until it hits about 0 degrees, but I think Fred has problems. You know what I mean?
Well,
Fred has
you said Fred is
problems.
sarcastic,
Fred
so
has problems.
I'll assume that he probably means 20 degrees there instead of 0. Because 0 is crazy. 0 like you're getting frostbite or something.
Yes, in the wrong circumstances. Okay, Midnight Do It Yourself DIY says, "What do
Mhm.
you guys think of Jalen Berger, the former Minnesota or Michigan State, Wisconsin running
Yeah.
back, who is now at UCLA? He'll be RB2 on the depth chart, but is he good enough to be a workhorse?" I thought that when Jalen Berger was at Wisconsin, I thought the world. I thought he was a tremendous
Hmm.
back, but I think that he just seems number one, I think he's tough. I think he's a good runner. I think he really was heavily responsible for Wisconsin's offense that year. But I think that he's just bounced around enough. I'm not sure what to think of him now.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
he's
think
looking for a home.
well, so he's at UCLA now. He came in very late. I mean, he probably literally came in the day before training camp started here about a week and a half ago. We haven't talked to him. We've only seen him from afar in the weight room. He hasn't even put on full pads or done anything along those lines. We've asked about him the last couple of days, and Deshaun Foster's not really willing to put a timeline on him. And I think Deshaun Foster is kind of going off of his first experience as far as injuries during the spring. He did have 2 ACL injuries in like a 10-minute span during the spring. So I think he's very cautious, especially with these guys who are coming in or, they're coming off injuries and whatnot. So he's really kind of getting Berger acclimated. Now, I think if they're bringing him in, especially considering the timing that they did, the expectation is he's going to play and is going to be a big part of what they do. Will he be their key or their workhorse running back? I think that's going to be TJ Harden. But I think Berger kind of adds some of that depth that they may be looking for because they usually, and of course, a lot of this is with Chip Kelly there, but more often than not, aside from the year where it was just the Zach Charbonnet show, where Zach Charbonnet, more often than not, it's a two-back system that they're usually working with. And if it was anybody else other than Deshaun Foster as a coach, I would say I don't know, but because Deshaun Foster knows the running backs and has had a pretty good success with the guys he's got in from the transfer portal at the running back position, I would imagine Berger is going to do well for them. Again, if something happens to Harden and he's asked to be the workhorse, I think they would give it a go with him. But they do have some other running backs there that they can lean on. But I would imagine it's going to be TJ Harden as your workhorse there for UCLA, and then Berger will follow there shortly after. But I think they'll fit him in nicely and give him some significant playing time.
So we're going to talk about other sports.
Sure.
Okay.
I don't know how helpful I'll be. No.
Well, here's the thing. Here's what I want to know. I mean, UCLA men's basketball has to be like here. Right? Yeah. John Wooden, come on. Bill Walton, how many championships in a row when I was a kid? I mean, men's basketball joining the Big Ten. What are they got to be excited about that? I mean, come on, it's Big Ten basketball. It's a tough conference.
I haven't gotten into basketball mode yet fully, so they've gotten a bunch of guys in the transfer portal. I think overall they're probably excited. I mean, John, they haven't.
I mean, about the fan base. How are the UCLA fans?
They love their basketball. They lean on their basketball. Right. I mean, look, football lets them down at the beginning, at the beginning of the athletic calendar, and then they lean on basketball to hopefully pull them through. No, they've been successful the last couple years, so there's some optimism there. They did have a little bit of a down year from what the last 2 years had been like, especially with Jaime Jaquez, who's now playing for the Miami Heat. I don't know if they still have the number one transfer portal class or how that worked out for them, but the NIL worked in their favor significantly this year, and they brought in some guys. So the fans are pretty happy about it. Obviously, it's going to be a big challenge. And I just think the biggest thing, we talk about what the travel and situation is going to look like for football. What is it going to look like for basketball? Are they going to stay out on the East Coast and knock out 3 or 4 games there? What the case is going to be? But they should be in the mix considering the talent that they brought in. I'm not completely familiar with all their names yet, but they made an impact in the transfer portal. I think the expectation is that they should be, pretty successful there this season. I would imagine the goal is to win a Big Ten title and ideally win the national championship. They came close a couple of years ago. I think the biggest thing is you just don't want Mick Cronin to bust a blood vessel, because when he gets mad, he gets mad. And so
he will fit in. He will fit in very well.
Did he fit in with some of the other?
No, in the Big Ten. I mean, well, Fran McCaffrey from Iowa, that guy scowls and he gets worked up. There's some damn good scowlers in the Big Ten, and I think that's important because it's entertaining to me. Nancy, I hope I'm not butchering your last name. Andrzejak says men's and women's basketball teams will be very strong. I foresee both conference champs. That's a tall order, Nancy.
The women's basketball team
You're coming into a basketball conference.
The women's basketball team has been pretty solid as well. Corey Close has done a pretty good job bringing in some talent. They have Kiki Rice there. She's been pretty solid for them and is still only in her younger years. So she's only going to get better as she becomes an upperclassman here. I mean, they should be in the mix too. I mean, if not for a Big Ten title, I mean, if not the national title, at the very least competing for a Big Ten title, I mean, it would be kind of disappointing. Some people have kind of wanted Corey Close to be fired, but I mean, if you're bringing in talent, and I don't want to say just giving it your all, but I mean, if you're winning games, being competitive, staying in the mix, I mean, what better is out there that you're going to get, right? So
Justin Rogge brings up, you know that Nebraska is the volleyball state.
Okay. So to answer Justin's question right off the bat, I am not very familiar with the volleyball team. I do know, at least for the men, the head coach was the head coach for the Olympics. See, I know that. Okay. But I am aware that Nebraska is a volleyball state. You guys filled out that stadium.
Yes.
Right.
Very good.
Yes. See,
You're working on it. You're getting there.
Yeah, I follow Amy Just out there who works
Okay.
for. I'm blanking on what
Link,
your guys' big paper is out there.
Lincoln. We have Omaha World Herald and the Lincoln Journal Star. I think she's
I
the
think
Lincoln
she.
Journal. They're
I
kind of
think she.
merged
Yeah.
together, but
Okay.
they still maintain that they're separate because
Mm-hmm.
Omaha and Lincoln have this kind of battle going on with each other that I don't
Gotcha.
understand.
They can't. They
Anyway,
don't want to claim that they're the same. But yeah. But just from
yeah.
her and her coverage and the stuff that she's doing out there, again, another reason why I'm at least semi familiar with what happens at Nebraska on occasion. But no, I was super impressed to see that they filled out the stadium just for a volleyball game, and I don't think anything like that could ever happen out here in LA for whatever level.
Okay. With regards to volleyball, though, are fans interested in it? I mean, is it a sport that people flock to? Is it?
So, are we talking about men's or women's?
Well, we don't have men's, so
Okay,
you
because
guys are. I don't know how that's going to work.
I don't have a whole lot for. Yeah, exactly. I don't know how some of that stuff's going to work either. For women, I'm not caught up to speed on. I don't know too much about the women's program as I do the men's. And the reason why I know a little bit more about the men and them having the success that they have is I went to Cal State Long Beach, and they're kind of one of the higher end men's volleyball teams, and they're competing left and right with UCLA quite a bit. So I'm at least familiar with UCLA being semi-successful there for men's volleyball compared to women's volleyball. But I mean, I think that's just one more thing. I'm getting into the Big Ten. I got to get in the Big Ten group. This is my first year. I get a pass. Next year, criticize me all you want for not knowing all the Big Ten traditions. I'm learning. Okay, a lot today.
Was it Long Beach State you were at?
Long Beach State, yeah, Cal State.
Okay,
Long Beach,
so the dirt bags.
Yeah. The dirt bags for baseball, yeah.
Yes.
You know what? They went away from the 49er thing because the gold miner and some other thing. And then they claimed that they were going to run with the Sharks as the mascot, but then the school said, no, that was just a student thing. So now they're kind of shying away from that. But the dirtbag thing is untouchable, and that's the men's baseball thing. And yeah, that has a solid brand on its own. And, they still hold claim to having the most players in the MLB, I believe, if not top 5. But yeah, the dirt bags, I don't mind being called a dirt bag every once in a while.
So for Nebraska, and people can argue with me, it's football, right? Football way up there in terms of fan interest. I'm talking about the fan base. Football, and then I'd say volleyball, and then I'd say baseball is third.
Okay.
Men's basketball, Nebraska has the worst power program in basketball history. We've never won an NCAA game in the NCAA tournament until that changes. Yes. So that is, yes.
Okay. That's a good fun fact.
I like how you reacted to that and you didn't just immediately go laughing out of your chair. But
I would have thought every school had kind of won a tournament.
Yeah, thanks a lot, James. We used to love you, and now you're just pissed off. Anyway, football, volleyball, and then baseball, and then you start getting a men's bat, and you might have some. Softball might be right up there above men's basketball. This year we'll have Jordy Ball, and she will bring a lot of interest to the sport. But baseball, baseball is a huge sport at Nebraska in terms of interest. They are always in the top 20 in attendance. Men's basketball is always in the top 20 in attendance too. But, you can say to people when you go to Nebraska, there's nothing else to do here. We'll get offended, but then you'll go, listen, in LA, we have the Dodgers. We have the whatever football team happens to be there this time.
Yeah.
In the NFL.
It varies now.
The Rams, I don't know who they are anymore. Anyway.
It's the few times I've taken trips out to the East Coast, and it was more for newspaper related things, and I'm talking to other journalists and whatnot, and they're like, oh yeah, we have like one of each team, or maybe we're not missing we don't have pro teams. I'm like, it made me go back home kind of overwhelmed because we had 2 teams for every league other than the Sparks and the WNBA. There's like 2 NFL teams, there's 2 baseball teams, there's 3 baseball teams. But, there's 2 of everything, NFL, NBA, and I'm like, it's kind of overwhelming. So, Yeah.
Hey,
There's a lot going on.
Midnight DIY says
Mhm.
14 Bruins scored medals at the 2024 Olympics. Do you
That's
know
right.
what they all were in?
Do I know all of them?
Well,
No.
I
I
mean,
know
you
the
know them.
the men's volleyball team
Right.
won
Okay.
bronze, but I think the number, I mean, I'm sure you might be aware there's the whole
Yes.
gymnastics things with
Yeah.
Jordan Childs, so I'm
Yeah.
not sure if we're at 14, it should be 15 or it should be 13. It depends how they wanna claim that, but
Have
yeah,
you
I
been
mean,
following that?
huh?
Have you been following the Jordan Childs thing?
A little bit. It seems like we're getting a new update every day. There was something out
Right.
a little bit today. I think I don't know. I thought, you know,
One of the
you
judges on the IOC committee that determined her fate was apparently is a French lawyer that works
right.
for Romania. And
Something
there was
about that.
some
Yeah.
stuff about conflict of interest. But if people don't
Mhm.
know, Jordan Childs is actually on the UCLA Bruin gymnastics team.
Yep.
It's Olympic sports, obviously, is a huge thing for UCLA.
Mhm. It
So
is.
track
Yes, it
and
is.
field, also things like that.
Track and field is important. Yeah, the gymnastics, all that. Yep, the Olympic sports is kind of the thing that a lot of the West Coast schools kind of pride themselves on. Stanford
Right,
too, and I think even for most Olympians, it's like Stanford, USC, or USC, Stanford, and then UCLA. But that's why it was a big concern even for Stanford. Like they almost had to cut some of their programs. There was the thought of,
right,
hey, we need to get it together here at UCLA, or we may have to cut some of the Olympic programs, and that's kind of what we hang our hat on. So
right.
times would be kind of hard if you're losing the thing that you're, kind of holding on to as your glory there.
Justin Rogie says, James, has Lisa Bluter informed you about Big Ten protocol for basketball? This
No.
is an insight. Lisa Bluter was Iowa's coach last year. She
Okay.
retired when Caitlin Clark went to the WNBA.
That's right. Okay.
Nebraska upset Iowa at home, and Lisa
Mm.
Bluter blew up cork and went all ballistic
I
on
think
us.
I remember. I think I
Yeah,
remember something
yeah.
about that. Yeah.
Justin Rogge also says, "Yet we sell out in every basketball game. We do sell out every
That's
basketball game.
impressive.
People are
Yeah.
really hungry for men's basketball to be a winner. Last year, we made the NCAA tournament for the first time
Mhm.
in many, many years, and people were excited. And then we did again. We lost the first round. Uh,
Okay, wait,
I,
who did you
I still
lose to?
We lost to Texas A&M. They
Okay, that's
weren't
not bad,
supposed to
right?
shoot threes very well, and they suddenly got like shot 89% or some damn thing.
Right.
Why? Because God was on their side and Satan's against us or something. I don't know what the hell the deal is. Tony Washland says, when's Lincoln going to steal Omaha's hockey team? We're not. We always get questions about hockey. UCLA, you ever get any questions about hockey?
No, but I think they have a club hockey team. So I think they do have a rink somewhere. I actually kind of got to go to it and check it out just to say that I did. But they have some hockey movement out here. Yeah. Is it any
Okay,
good? I don't know.
I have to ask you this.
Sure.
UCLA is coming to the Big Ten. You're going to get a
Mhm.
lot more money because
Mhm.
really in the Pac-12 you were getting pretty much close to nothing, and I mean
Yes.
that's why it's gone. But
Mhm.
UCLA has to pay Cal.
Yeah. They call it
What
calimony
what is this? Why? Why does this happen?
because if I'm not mistaken, it's because UCLA and Cal are in the same it's more like school district almost, right? But whatever they
Okay.
want to call it, Cal State University System, whatever, same school district. And because they feel like UCLA is leaving Cal in the dust, Cal's losing out on money and yada yada yada, and they think therefore this money that UCLA is getting for being in the Big Ten, they need to share with sister school Cal. But the funny thing is now that Cal went to, and this was before Cal had
Right.
went to the Atlantic
Big
Coast College.
C.
So,
Yeah.
um, but they didn't move on from that. And to add on to that, Cal just got added to UCLA's schedule for a couple games here down the road. So it's not so what actually did Cal lose out on? I mean, they just got a new deal with not Jordan, maybe it's like Nike. So they're doing well for themselves, all things considered, but
Consider that they're Cal, for God's sakes.
yeah, I mean they are Cal. But yeah, I
So
mean
they,
it's
do Do they still have to pay them then, or is that still a
Yeah,
thing?
they still do. Nothing changed on that. I think the weird thing is there may not be a how many years you have to pay it. I don't know if it's a forever thing. I mean, that would almost be kind of silly.
It would.
But again, I mean, who knows how long the ACC will be there, how long Cal will be in the ACC, how much longer before the Pac-12 or I mean the Big Ten West forms along and they need Cal anyways. Who knows? I mean, but yeah, it is a little bit of a funky situation, but calimony is what they call it out here.
Okay. Jason Reeves says UCLA gymnastics and track are absurd. It's like Okie State and wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the gymnastics, they went viral. They kind of almost go viral every year for something.
Nancy comes back and says women's soccer NCAA champs. Is that right, UCLA?
That's correct. And I Bleav it was a first-year coach. It was her first year on the job, and she went out there and won the whole thing. I think men's or women's water polo had reached the finals, if I'm not mistaken. So, they're winning championships, and they're claiming all the, conference of champions. Well, what was conference of champions and all the titles that they win, but it's not in football. So that's kind of the one thing is your big money mover, ideally is not working out. So hopefully it turns around.
We're probably running to the end here, and Jason Reeves comes in with this shit, Jason, this garbage. Cal, Stanford, Georgia Tech, Notre Dame, and Texas A&M all belong in the Big Ten. Fight me. Well, first of all, I am glad that we didn't get Cal and Stanford because screw those schools. They don't give a shit about football. And if you want to have, whether you like this or not, that's where the money is. That's where the emphasis is. Men's basketball is going to bring in a lot of money. Other sports are starting to make more money or make more, have more of a presence. Certainly women's basketball and volleyball have jumped up a lot. But Cal and Stanford, no way, deserve to be in the Big Ten. And don't give me this shit about the AAU and research Big Ten dollars academic crap. This is about sports and football. Georgia, I have no idea why you put Georgia Tech in there.
Yeah, because I was like, is Georgia in there? But Georgia's not even. Georgia's an SEC team. So, I mean, to be honest, what that looks like is you're just, other than Notre Dame, you're just getting everybody's little brother.
Yeah. That is true. I think Texas A&M would be interesting because it would give the Big Ten a foothold in Texas A&M. In Texas.
Well, and that was the whole thing. They were the ones who were supposedly butthurt about Texas. Oh, no, wait.
Yes.
Is Texas already there? No, Texas just joined, right? Yeah, Texas Oklahoma just joined. So they were butthurt about them even joining the SEC. So, I mean, I don't know if SEC is kicking out teams anytime soon. I doubt Texas A&M would be one of them, just considering, what they do and then the money that they kind of have going for them. But, Cal and Stanford, I mean, it would be a benefit to UCLA and USC to kind of have some more West Coast teams. John, I do have a question for you, and maybe in the chat can also comment on as well. What do you guys think about UCLA, USC joining the conference, and then you get Oregon and Washington? Does it worry you that, especially in what could be a promising year for Nebraska football, that it kind of now maybe I could bump you down a rung or two when you have Oregon now in the mix and some of that movement there? How are you guys feeling?
I think it's, you can. There's a certain segment of our fan base that would go back to the Big 12. I maybe not now, but for the 10 years that we've been in the Big 10, there was this constant rumble of we want to go back to the Big 12, and really they didn't miss the Big 12. They missed winning because we haven't won and we've been terrible for a long time, but like most of your life, man. You don't even know Nebraska and Oklahoma were rivals. So, I mean, we have sucked for a while. So I don't think those people miss, old times as much, but the changes have happened really fast and they've been a lot of changes. And I guess I look at this, the way I live is I don't really look back a lot because, it's useless. I know when you get older, that's what you do a lot. And I don't mean to be rude to anybody, but one of the worst things I hate about being 62 is sitting around with people my age and they talk about shit that was 20 years ago, how much better things were. I think that
simpler times.
Well, yeah, whatever. It's really it's romanticizing the past. Okay. I think that this is going to be the most exciting year of college football ever. Is it a lot of change? Yes. Is the Big Ten going to be tougher than ever? Yes. It's going to be tougher than ever across the board in every sport we compete in. But we brought in some really good universities and some really good teams, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with them. And I think that, there have been times where in the past years where you could look at a college football weekend and say, wow, there's not really very many good games. Well, I think those days are over because now, between the Big Ten and the SEC, there's never going to be really a week off for anybody. And it's going to be tough. And I think we have to adjust ourselves with the idea that, Tom Osborne at Nebraska for 25 years never won less than 9 games a season, never lost more than 3. Those days are gone.
Yeah.
They're gone for everybody. They're not just gone for Nebraska. They're gone for Ohio State. They're gone for Oregon. They're going to play tough games and they're going to lose some. And we're going to have to get used to the idea that where you want to be is not necessarily conference champion. You want to be the conference champion, but if you're in the top 4 in the Big Ten, you're probably going to get into the playoff. And that's really is going to be what determines success from now on. So I think that it's going to be, I'm glad that they got the teams they did to join the Big Ten. And I mean, Notre Dame would have been fine, but I don't think Notre Dame will ever join the Big Ten. One of the other channels I do on YouTube is called Hardcore College Football History. And
well, that's the channel I need to be watching.
It is, but this is really, I started way back in 1869 and in the 1920s. So yes, it is. The other thing is this, I'll give you one recommendation. Before you go to LSU, okay, I want you to read the book, It Never Rains in Tiger Stadium.
I heard something like that.
Write that down and read that book. Okay, read that book.
Writing it down.
Before you go there. It Never Rains in Tiger Stadium. Okay, anyway. What else? We covered
I have another question. I have another question. So it just came to mind because I saw Minnie in the chat. She put what is it? What is your guys' acronym here? GBR, right? So Go Big Red, right?
Yeah,
I got that right. One. Okay. I've learned this stuff from the video game now. But they have some other things that flash up on there. The black shirts.
That's our defense.
Okay,
it's
why?
The black
I kind of Googled something about it, but
okay. The black shirt defense.
I was looking for black uniforms to play with in the game, and there's no black uniforms, so I didn't get it. I didn't get it.
There's black shirt. It's called the black shirt defense because in the 60s, Nebraska throughout its history started in 1890. They were very good at football until World War II came along. When World War II came along, they had a period of 20 years, like from the World War II years to 1962, until Bob Devaney arrived. It's Devaney, not Devaney, like some people will pronounce. Bob Devaney arrived, and that began the history of Nebraska football for a lot of people. And in the 60s, one of the coaches wanted to go out and get different practice jerseys for the defense. And he went to this store, and apparently all they had left were black T-shirts. So he bought all this black T-shirts, and the defense after that became a tradition known as the black shirt defense. And, last year, Tony White, first year, playing defense.
UCLA alum.
Yep, exactly. We're all worried about him going back there.
Yep.
I mean, he proved that we could play defense again, and that's a huge thing for Nebraska fans. So.
When the head coaching job was open there, when the UCLA job was open there, there's nerves. I mean, the fans.
Yeah,
I mean, that's how I kind of learned about Tony White. Is there was kind of a want for Tony White.
You have to realize that football is Nebraska's ego, whether we like that or not, or whether we like to admit it. I want you right now. If I said Nebraska and it's not football, what do you think of?
Corn.
Okay. Second, what's second? Yeah,
nothing.
See what I mean? we don't have mountains,
right?
We don't have beautiful, snow-capped mountains. We do have the largest deposit of sand in the Western Hemisphere, in the sand hills in the sand. People don't know that, but it's true. In the sand hills in Nebraska, it's basically like the Sahara Desert with sand dunes covered with blue stem grass.
Interesting.
Massive shit tons of acres. Almost nobody lives there. It's perfect cattle grazing land, which gives us the best beef on the planet. So when you go to Nebraska, you're going to have two things. You're going to have sweet corn on the cob, and you're going to have some Nebraska beef. Oh, I guess 3 and a coat.
And a coat. Yeah, I got to bring the coat, and I got to get the corn and the beef there.
Right.
One other thing, as far as different things that I saw popping up on the game, there was this pirate flag. Does that mean anything?
That's part of the black shirt defense.
Okay, part of the black shirt.
It's the skull and bones thing.
Gotcha.
When they do this, it's
yes, they were doing a lot of this in the game.
Throw the
gotta
bones.
Put that together. Okay, gotcha. Okay, I'm learning. See, I got some of the little traditions down. I'm figuring it out.
Oh, Minnie Hunt says that's right. Day by day, and if we die, we die. Or 2 others you will hear.
If we die,
I hate the "if we die, we die" phrase. You know, I got to Husk guys sent me their T-shirt, and they want me to do a social media post about that phrase, and I hate that phrase. Day by day it's basically a Husker prayer, and I'm not going to recite the whole thing, but it's basically day by day we get better and better, and it's a thing for Nebraska's. You know, it's like
gotcha.
Well, it is kind of a prayer.
Is it like their fight song or something?
Well, it's not a fight song. It's more like something everybody says together to get themselves worked up for a game.
Gotcha.
You know, because when you put on the pads, if you talk to a lot of football players, they'll talk about how they have something that transforms them into regular Joe nice guy, into being like when they cross the line to get on the field, or when they put their pads on, or when they say a certain thing, or then when they listen to a certain piece of music, they have something that transformed them from I'm the nicest guy in the planet to I'm the most violent human being that wants to kill every quarterback I'll ever see and eat their heart, rip it out of their chest and eat it hard. Well, it's still beating. They have to transform themselves, okay? And the day by day, the day by day thing is one of those things for people that maybe not the stands. We're pretty nice fans overall, I think. But all right, any other questions?
Nothing for me. I learned a lot, John. I appreciate you having me on today.
That's good. We're all about education here.
Awesome. I got a lot of it today, and I even got homework and everything. I got books.
You do, yes.
I'm spending more money doing this than anything else.
But, you know, Minnie had one quote up there, and then she took it off. Somebody said when we were talking about UCLA joining the Big Ten, somebody said beaches in November, bring it on. And
come on over.
Yeah, I think that's another thing we're looking forward to is going to California. So
put the winter coats away and come on out. Bring your shorts.
Tiger Shark Diver says, "But thanks for coming on, James."
Yes, thank you, Tiger Shark Diver. It's been great being here. My question is, so do you guys even own sandals?
It gets hot in Nebraska.
Well, I don't know. I just keep hearing about winter coat. I don't hear nothing about sunglasses or anything else. So I'm just making sure.
Now it depends, because if you're in Lincoln and Omaha, you can wear sandals. But if you're out where I grew up in Nebraska and you're wearing sandals, we have rattlesnakes everywhere. So you're not.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not wearing sandals.
Then. Yeah. You're not wearing sandals.
That's all you got to say. That's all you had to say.
Okay. Jason Reeves does make one more point that should be made. Mr. James, come early and hang out in the parking lot. We will feed you. This is one thing. Yeah.
I like Jason.
If you walk around and you're wearing UCLA, people will be they'll be nicer to you than we are ourselves. There's a lot of Nebraska on Nebraska crime sometimes, hate crime for ourselves, but never for opposing fans, which is kind of interesting.
Good hospitality is important. So you're telling me it's not like LA where they just beat up on each other in the parking lot too?
Right. We don't do that. We might beat up Nebraska fans might beat up other Nebraska fans, but never an opposing fan.
Gotcha.
Unless it's Colorado. Colorado.
Okay.
I take that.
Gotcha. I guess I'm in good company because everyone else hates Colorado here too.
Yes. You're We love you already, man.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's going to be it.
Yeah, that's it for me. Thank you for everyone in the comments with the nice messages and the slippers. Okay, slippers. I'm down with slippers. Can't go wrong with slippers.
Justin Rogge says, thanks, James. Great episode.
Justin, thank you.
Linda Wilkins says slippers, James.
Mm-hmm. Slippers over sandals always, yeah.
I guess.
Not I guess.
Justin Rogge says one day it would be 65, the next day it would be -20. Literally, that's true. It's certainly true here in Minnesota. All right, I think that's going to be it. I usually go for an hour, and this is closer to an hour and a half, and that's good because this was kind of fun.
It was fun. I appreciate.
We will play in November, and we'll certainly have to have you back and talk about that game before it happens.
Let's do it again. I look forward to it, and would love to be back.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, for the support. There you go. Good night, everybody.
Awesome.